Blog Talk Radio.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico, and welcome to another Thursday evening. It's hard to believe, but we're already almost at the end of the first week of November. Seems like we just had Halloween just a few nights ago, which literally we did, and here we are into November. We're coming up very quickly onto the end of 2015. Thanks for tuning in live tonight. As I always mention, we are live during the Thursday night broadcast from 6 to 8 Central or 7 to 9 for those of you on the East Coast, and for those of you on the West Coast, that's 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific time. Thanks for joining us tonight. Got a great show for you tonight. Of course, I'm your host, Ted Odorico, and we got a Coach's Corner. A little change to the Coach's Corner panel discussion tonight. One of our panelists, unfortunately, had to bow out last minute due to a personal issue that had arose throughout the day, and unfortunately had to back out. But we'll get Michael Wheeler on the next time. But I got my good friend Jamie Leno Zimron is going to be sticking it here with me for the first hour, and then a little bit later in the show, on the second hour, I'm going to be joined by PGA Golf Coach and professional golf teacher, Mr. Tom Patri is going to be joining me here in the second hour. But let me just remind everybody, of course, as I said, we are live every Thursday night from 6 to 8 Central Standard Time. Best way to find us is go to blogtalkradio.com, and up in the search key type Golf Talk Live, and that will take you right to the show. And of course, the live show is always at the top of the page. If you're not able to join us live, scroll down into the on-demand section after the show, and it will be there. The recorded version will be available for you to listen to. You won't be able to call in, of course, but you'll be able to listen to the show in its entirety. Speaking of calling in, you're welcome to call in anytime during the live broadcast from 6 to 8. You can do so by calling area code 646-716-4667. That number again is 646-716-4667. Always love to take some calls when we can. You can also email questions or comments to me personally at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com, which of course is my email address. If you're in the golf business and you want to come on the show as a guest, I'd be more than happy. If you're a teacher professional or maybe somebody, a business person or entrepreneur, and want to share your thoughts and views, or maybe you've got a great product that you want to showcase on the show as well, just send me an email at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. Also get updates on the show from Facebook. Go to Golf Talk Live blog in Facebook, and while you're there, make sure you throw a like or two my way. I always appreciate that. And you can also follow me on Twitter at Ted and Buck CEO, and CEO, of course, is in capital letters. As I mentioned, we're going to start off with a Coach's Corner for the first hour. We're going to be one coach short, of course, one professional short, but as I said, Jamie stepped up, and she's going to be here with me here in just a second. So let me just tell you a little bit very quickly about Jamie, and then we'll begin our discussion. Jamie Leno Zimron, of course, has been on the show a number of times. She's a Class A LPGA Teaching Professional and also referred to as the Golf Sensei. She's a pioneer 5th degree Aikido Black Belt, also a Somatic Psychologist, a corporate and Vistage International Speaker, an executive trainer, and a body-mind fitness expert and citizens diplomat. Jamie, welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you, Ted. I'm honored and excited to have such a personal opportunity to talk with you and all your listeners. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, it's going to be just you and I. As you put it in the message back and forth, it's date night for Jamie and I here on the Golf Talk Live. So we're going to have some fun. But let's start. I'll tell you very quickly, and I know we talked about this off the air, just for the folks to get an idea what we're going to talk about here tonight. Last week on the Coach's Corner discussion, I had two great PGA professionals, Clint Wright and John Hughes, of course, were on the panel discussion, and we talked about some of the things that really make a good coach or teacher, and also a good golf lesson, and some of the things that they need to be cognizant of when giving a golf lesson to some of their students. Well, tonight we're going to flip the switch, if you will, and we're going to talk about some top 10 golf tips for beginners, things that the beginners need to take note of in order to play their best, especially if you're just starting out in the game. There's a lot of things that you really need to understand, and we certainly want to encourage you to work with a teaching professional out in the industry and connect with somebody and get them to help you with some of the intricacies. But here are some points that we're going to talk about, and then Jamie's got a few of her own that we're going to throw in here as well. So, Jamie, I'm going to just start off real quickly here, reading out the first tip, and I call this one Take Dead Aim. And let me just give you a little synopsis of it here, and then we'll have some discussion. It's really not just referring, when I say take dead aim, not just your feet. We're really talking about your alignment. And I think every practice session, really for the rest of your life, you need to work on your alignment. One of the biggest mistakes, I think, especially, and we're going to talk about right-handed golfers here, but they tend to aim right of what their intended ball flight is going to be. And what ultimately ends up happening is they end up rerouting the golf club in order to get back to their target, and it causes a myriad of things. So what do you try to do, Jamie, in order to get your students, the ones that you're working with, to really make sure they focus intently on their alignment?
Well, alignment is interesting. It begins actually, oddly enough, with obviously aligning your body and even aligning your hands on the club and aligning the face of the club. So, these are real basics. Right. That, interestingly enough, if you watch the pros on TV, the touring pros, you will see them pay attention to those fundamentals. They're not just for beginners. I mean, everything goes back to basics. So right. Even on the LPGA Tour, it's kind of interesting. You'll see the caddies stand behind the players and be right. sure that they're completely lined up. Their feet are lined up, their club face is lined up, their shoulders, everything's where it's intended to go, because we want to swing on that line. And then the caddy will go, okay, good, cool, and then walk away
right.
and make your swing. One of the things that's kind of interesting, and my colleague who I teach a lot with these days, Rebecca Heinmart, here in California, Northern California, but she does a really cool thing during our clinics and retreats to let people know how much they get fooled by their eyes and alignment, right. such that you get the result you're talking about, which is to the right. People think that they need to put their feet or align their feet on the line to, say, the target, the flag. And that's right. how you end up going to the right.
Right.
So what we do, and she's such a master at doing this. I just love it when she does. And everybody's like, "Oh my God, that's amazing! I didn't know that." So we'll put down a lineman stick or a club, doesn't really matter, and have people line up where they think they need to go. And so many people put their feet on the line to the flag. Let's say it's the fairway marker flag or the flag on the green, and and then we'll put another alignment tool or club down really to in front of that, so that right. We think that it's like our eyes trick us and our brain tricks us, and you end up seeing that, oh my God, I'm so far off. I'm so far to the right when I line up exactly on the pin. That's not where we need to be. The club face should be, working on that line, but not the feet. And that's, I think, where people end up, with the ball going off to the right or lefties going off to the left, and they miss it. So, we really need to understand that. Then the other part is the word line is just what it says. There is what we call the target line. You can think of it like a bow and arrow in archery, or is it, and you think of the arrow going straight out that line. And so the takeaway in the golf swing really ought to be along that line, or maybe a tiny, tiny bit on the inside of it. So we set up a bit of an inside arc, and then right. coming back down, club face squaring up. And as it squares at the moment of impact, it keeps traveling through down the line. I often
Right.
show this with my sword. I mean, we know I'm a martial artist, so I'll use
Right.
my Japanese sword, and I'm still completely centered on the ball where my head is. My head is down, eyes are down. We're looking at the ball, and then it takes some power launching from the feet, some flexibility in the back, some stretch and flexibility in the lats and the muscles of the side of the body, and full arm extension down the line. And so the tip of the sword or the toe of the club is pointing down the line. So if you really build your golf swing, in the impact zone from along the target line, back impact, and then to the end of the impact zone on the line, then you can start to really build a swing that's going to give you accuracy and consistency.
Yeah, well said, Jamie. A lot of people, again, just to sort of briefly mention, we always refer to lining up parallel left to your target line. A lot of people don't understand that. And, their lining up parallel left is, again, lining with their feet where the flight path, if you will, or the target line and their foot path come to a point, as opposed to much like always was used in sort of olden times, setting up like a railroad track. In other words, you have two lines.
Yep.
And that's usually the analogy that most professionals used over the years. I mean, now we've got different vernacular, if you will, or lingo that we might use. But essentially that's it. And you're right. I think a lot of people misunderstand that, and especially the amateurs. I think for the pros, that if they're going to err, it's more probably going to be, in my opinion, more on the open side than it would be on a closed side. I think, and I don't know, Jamie, you may disagree with that, but I think the pros would tend to be, if they're going to line up incorrectly, which most of them, of course, don't, but if they do, usually I would think that they probably would tend to be more on the open side. Would you agree with that, do you think, or not?
I wish I could give you an answer I feel confident of. You'd probably have to do a study. I mean, we do see that the pros, they spray it to some extent the same way we do, and it's kind of an individual thing, and something that everybody wants to learn and know about themselves. What's your usual miss? Is it more open and it's going to go off to the right for a righty? It's going to go, or do you miss? You pull it to the left. And those things tend to be issues of timing. They can be issues of alignment. They can be even issues of flexibility. I don't know how much people are aware of the extent to which flexibility affects their ability to make accurate golf shots and to actually swing along the target line. And what I mean by that is that the muscles of the side of the body and all the way up to the lats, the muscles even around the elbows, which are comparable to our knee joints, and we're aware of tight hamstrings or quads. We're not so aware of having tightness in our biceps and in the muscles of our forearms. But those things really make a big difference in terms of, can you extend out the target line on the way back and on the way through, having strength in the core and strength in the glutes and the pelvic support muscles, having strength in the quads so that you can create stability. I mean, these things are very, very important. If you don't have stability and your feet are, for example, dancing around, unless you're Bubba Watson, but, that's another story. And we all make exceptions for him, and that's okay because, he's a major champion. Okay, but barring that, we pretty much need to have stable feet and understand our footwork, and to engage the core in the lower body, create that stability, and then swing in a relaxed, arc around that. So many people don't learn and aren't taught how to use their feet and their lower body, and without that, most people tend to kind of resort to upper body strength and arm strength and kind of brute force, like, how am I going to hit this? And then they end up kind of going, swinging hard with their upper body. Then it kicks them back. Their feet come completely out of position, and their ball's going screwy. And it could be right or left, honestly. But so these are some real basics. And to me, one of the big differences between amateur golfers and pros, between not so good players, high handicappers, and lower handicappers, is balance and stability. And, really being in position, being able to stay in position through the golf swing, and not getting kicked back or lifting or pulling out of position or pushing out of position. So these are people don't ordinarily think that fitness is going to affect their accuracy. They'll think that it's going to affect their distance and their power, but accuracy is very, very affected by flexibility and stability.
Right, and just to add to that real quickly, I used to know a gentleman years ago. He was an older gentleman, probably about 60-ish, maybe 65, who was still teaching at that time. And I used to often hear him say to his students, he'd say, if you're tight, you're going to go right. And what he meant by that is if your muscles are tight, because most, especially right-handed golfers, most tend to have a problem of slicing the ball. And really what he was getting at was that, if your muscles are tight and you don't have that flexibility, as you're transitioning through into impact, and that, again, a lot of amateurs will just sort of stop really at the ball. And, of course, everything bad happens. The club face opens up. Your body falls back into a reverse pivot. And usually if you actually make connection with the ball, more often than not, it's going to end up being severely left to right. But, you're right. There's all of those factors have to be put in there: flexibility and alignment and so forth. Also,
on that note about kind of the tendency to hit the banana ball, whether you're lefty or righty, to hit a slice. What a lot of people do is that they change their feet position, right, and so they'll line up their feet more to the left to compensate in their minds for hitting the ball to the right. We're talking about righties right now. Okay, so it's very common. We all know that. So now they're set up to the left, and ultimately, kind of, creating this skewed position, and then actually encouraging the improper path of the club that's going to create even more of a slice. And so, what this speaks to is that, in a certain way, the golf swing is kind of like puzzle pieces, right? They've got to fit together. And so people who make these compensations and then realign their feet, thinking if I aimed more to the left, I'm not going to hit it so much to the right, which is not the case. It's kind of like trying to jam puzzle pieces. All these compensations, like trying to jam a puzzle piece that doesn't really belong there into into position, and it's just not going to go. I mean, things must be put together properly. So I actually teach the fundamentals. I always ask people, what does a PGA mean? And they're like, well, Professional Golfers Association. Like, wrong. It means posture, grip, alignment. Grip alignment. So and again, you see the pros on tour paying attention to their posture, to their grip, and their alignment every single shot. And then what's the LPGA? Love your posture, grip, alignment. And what's love? Oh, this is nice. This feels comfortable. This is right. Something's going to fit together well here. And so we have to pay attention. We have to learn those fundamentals well right off the bat, and that's why it does help to have an instructor right off the bat. And then I don't care what level you're at, whether you're a brand new beginner or you're a touring pro, every single shot you pay attention to those basics and be sure that they're in place. Good spine, straight spine angle, feet, shoulders, hip, shoulders, all in alignment, club face in alignment, hands properly on the club, not too open, not too closed, et cetera, et cetera. So these things are important for every single shot and in the ability to produce the shot that you're looking for. And then having the ability to understand swinging along the target line and then the physical capabilities to, in fact, swing along the target line and launch the ball where you want it to go.
Right, exactly. The other, just a couple of the other tips here as well, really you've already touched on, but number 2 was, of course, creating a solid stance. Number 3, of course, was developing a perfect posture. I don't know if there's such a thing as a perfect posture, but I think we understand what they're meant. And then, of course, making friends with your grip, and that's really talking about what you've just said was is developing a good posture and a good grip and alignment. And one of the things that a lot of amateurs, especially beginners, and that's why I can't emphasize enough, and Jamie, I'm sure you would agree with this, wherever and whenever possible, if you're somebody that's just taking up the game, even if you've gone out and played a few times, if you really want to tackle this game and really make it fun, contact your local teaching professional. Talk to 2 or 3 of them, interview them if you will, and find one that fits good with you. but really get set up and learn the fundamentals properly, because I think one of the hardest things and one of the biggest mistakes a lot of beginners make is they try to get some of these lessons from their friends. And if their friends, a 25 handicap, that's not really one you want to get your advice from. And it may be well-meant or intended rather, but it's not going to do the things that you need. And by connecting with your local teacher professional, they're going to be able to set you right and set you up straight and get you with good fundamentals. And then it's just a matter of going out and working on those fundamentals all the time. We're going to talk a little bit more about that, so I don't want to jump right into that too much, because we're going to talk about that in here in just a moment. But you're right. This is something that I think beginners. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to add a little something that people may not be so aware of in terms of working with a qualified PGA or LPGA instructor. This is kind of interesting. I am also a psychologist, and I did my master's degree in clinical psychology. I had to do 3,000 clinical hours as internship. Then there were written exams, there were state boards, oral exams. I mean, it was a long, difficult, expensive process, right? It took years. And then I finally had my, my license to practice psychotherapy. Okay, so when I decided I really want to be a teaching professional as well, I've been golfing since I was 7, played competitively. Okay, so I go to the LPGA and register for the program. I have to tell you, it was 7 years from starting as an apprentice, moving through, required 2 years of work in the industry and national education programs, reading thick binders and books and taking written tests, and then to Class B was practical exams where you're teaching students you've never met before. You got 30 minutes. You got to cover this intense list of stuff in 30 minutes while you've got 3 or 4 examiners just sitting behind you, watching you, exactly how you communicate, how you do everything. And, then you pass. You've got 4 times to pass or fail. That's how difficult they make the exams. A lot of people it takes them a few times through. So that was for Class B. Same thing, and then another 2 years working and teaching, interning, et cetera, to become Class A. So, I mean, I say that just to say, you know what, it was just about comparable to becoming a practicing psychotherapist. There's a lot of education, a lot of testing, both written and oral, practical kinds of boards, and people may think, you're a golf pro or just go take a lesson from this person. No, there is an amazing amount of education and practice and testing that goes in as people develop their teaching skills. So when you do go for a lesson, hopefully, and most of the time you're working with someone who's really been through a lot and is quite qualified. Sure. And I don't think it's something that the general public tends to know.
No, they don't understand, and that's why I say I think you really need to treat it really like an interview process, and there's lots of ways of communicating with them. I mean, depending on where you're living, there might be several facilities in your area. I encourage, especially beginner golfers, to go and visit some of these facilities, whether it be a practice range or even a local public course, and speak with the pros there and just, give them an idea of your intent. And you don't have to certainly make any commitments or call them on the phone and just talk to them for a few moments and, ask them. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Have some questions jotted down and maybe talk to somebody else that's maybe worked with this professional before and get an idea of how they how they were treated and so on and so forth. So you have to do your homework like anything, Jamie, I think, but definitely my point really is being, I think, as beginning golfers, want to get into the game, I think it's very important to connect with somebody that is in the profession that can help them, guide them through that process. Because again, a lot of people go out there and they try to let their friends steer them, and what ultimately ends up happening is they don't really enjoy the game because they're struggling, they're frustrated, and more often than not end up giving up the game. So better to start off fresh and with a clean slate and let somebody that knows what they're doing guide you through that process. Some of the other things, of course, sorry, go ahead. Yeah,
let me add a little something to that. Is it's like in anything. I mean, you're kind of getting into a relationship, so you want to be with somebody who you you have a fit with, a match. Kind of you relate well, and you enjoy each other. And there are programs too where there are clinics. There's group clinics. They may be 3 people, 6 people, 10 people, whatever. Sure. Some playing opportunities. So there's both the individual one-on-one kind of lesson that are really, really helpful, as well as some of the kind of group experiences. Another dimension, something that professionals are taught as we're going through this long process, is a real awareness of learning styles. And it's something that as a student, or just as the person you are in everything you do, you want to be aware of your own particular learning styles. So what that means is, there's a few different breakdowns on that. One is left-right brain. Are you more the sort of left brain analytical type, and you want everything explained, you need to understand step by step by step? Are you more kind of the right brain feel type, and it's just kind of let me do it, let me feel it, explain it to me a little, don't get me too confused in my head. So that left brain right brain thing is a very important dimension. And another one has been called or defined a lot by the neuro-linguistic programming people, NLP folks, and they talk a lot about VAK, visual, auditory, kinesthetic. And these are 3 different modes. Are you more visual? Are you more auditory and you like things explained? You can hear them and you'll get them. Kinesthetic, touch me, put my hands in place, put me where I need to be. So we all have some VAK in us, but most of us kind of major in one of those, and it really helps when in the communication if we're working and communicating in the ways that match our own particular learning style. So we need to know what they are for ourselves, and we certainly want a professional who's sensitive to that. Otherwise, it's going to be kind of mismatchy. Just one more note on that. I was just kind of paying attention to Phil Mickelson firing Butch Harmon, right? The media these days. But it was pretty interesting. I was reading a little bit more about it, and I guess Phil flew down to Las Vegas and took Butch and talked to him, and they had a long conversation, and it seemed to be pretty professional, amicable. They're parting ways for the time being. And Butch Harmon even said, well, he gets it. It's been quite a few years. Phil was doing great with him, won 11 tournaments, something like that, since they started some years back. Recently, Phil's not doing so well, and Butch said, I understand. Sometimes you need to hear things differently, or someone just works with you in a different way, or a fresh way, or a way that will get through better than I'm getting through right now. And so that's the kind of thing that you really want to look out for. And again, from beginner all the way up to top touring pros.
Yeah, that's so true. And Tiger obviously did the same thing. Worked with Butch for a number of years, had some success. Went on to of course Hank Haney and so on and so forth. And that's just something that again. That's nothing against the specific teach professionals or anything, but again, after a while, I think sometimes people want to hear and feel and see something fresh and different, and that's a lot of times why those changes are made. But yeah, you're right. You're exactly right. You have to sort of. It is a relationship, and you can't just. I think one of the biggest misnomers in golf is from the amateur side of things is they seem to think that they can go out and maybe just take one sort of quick lesson and miraculously learn the golf swing and all of the things that go with it in maybe 1 or 2 lessons, and it's not. It's a process. It's really a journey. Golf, Jamie, I'm sure you can attest to this. I was like you. I started at age 7 and played for quite some time and teach as well. It's a life journey, and you're not going to learn it all in one day or an hour session. And I think a lot of people are very impatient, and that's something too. You have to develop patience. And you have to be willing to work at it. You didn't learn your job or your profession in one day. It took time to build and nurture those talents before you got better. The other thing too. Let me just read down a few more of these, Jamie, and then we'll get into some other stuff. The other thing is making your range sessions count. A lot of people, that's the other thing, is when you do go out and you've maybe been working with somebody for a little while and they give you some specific drills or tips to work on, you need to do that. And a lot of beginners make that mistake. They don't. They just sort of put the clubs in the bag until the next time. Then they get there and, the pro maybe wants to sort of refresh what happened the last time. And, it's like a deer in headlights. They just don't. they don't know what to do because they haven't really practiced anything. So that's the other thing too, is that you need to practice with a sense of purpose, and you need to work on the things that you've been taught. And that's probably, in my opinion, one of the biggest problems right now in golf with a lot of amateurs is they just don't put the time and effort. And even more importantly than that, they don't practice the right things. And I don't necessarily mean the areas of the game, but they'll keep making the same bad mistakes and practice it 1,000 times thinking, well, if I just keep hitting balls or if I just keep hitting that, it's going to get better. No, you have to make sure what you're doing is correct first. And then once you're doing it correctly, you practice that. You don't practice the same bad flaws and mistakes. You practice, and that's why it's important to work with a teaching professional to get those little kinks out, if you will. So range sessions are certainly something else that needs to be worked on. And something, Jamie, and I don't know if you encourage people to do this, especially for beginners, but I try to do this because a lot of them are very intimidated. One of the other tips here is maybe go to a par 3 course and play a few holes there. They're not as long, they're a little bit shorter. You're working on some of your irons, particularly your shorter irons, and it just sort of gets you comfortable as opposed to jumping into a 500-plus yard par 5. Would you agree with that too? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree to that. Let me get there. I'm just going to back up a little bit, tie a couple of things together that you brought up because I think they're really important. Go back a little bit around the teacher and the teacher-student relationship, basically. As you know, I practice martial arts. I've been at it for decades by now. And the tradition in the martial arts is that here you have a sensei, this master instructor, and you want to study with them. They become what we call a deshi. So we have the sensei-deshi, the student relationship. And it's a very special relationship. And to be accepted as a student was the real focus here, not just in our culture, we're like, I'm going to shop around and figure out what teacher I like, which I personally think that's a great thing. But it's more like, no, here's this master, and will I even be accepted as a student? And to be, so, and this gets to what you're talking about. I mean, what would make it such that you would be accepted or not as a student? And there are so many parables, right, and martial arts parables about this. But basically, it's the commitment, the depth of commitment of the student.
Right.
It's like, why I, as an instructor, as a teacher, as a sensei, why am I going to invest so much in your development if you aren't going to invest so much in your development? If you're not that committed to practicing, to paying attention, and then to practicing and doing what I ask and tell you to do, and even taking initiative yourself. So I think the kernel that we can get out of that is just asking ourselves, well, what's really our commitment? And there's not a right answer to that, but there is, I think, at least a basic baseline commitment if we want to become proficient at all at the game. So, again, another kind of concept or practice that I bring in for martial arts is this notion of training. It's more than just a lesson, now and then, or running around reading a bunch of tips or this and that, and try this, toss it out. Well, that didn't work after my third try, my third shot. That's no good. Let me go find something else. No, you stick with it and you practice. And daily practice is ideal. Most of us don't have that kind of time to do that, but at least it's several times a week. So, in fact, one of the things that I've done in my Ki golf trainings is to create exercises that people can do to work on their mind, their body, their physical game, their swing, even indoors, even in the rain and snow, without necessarily having to spend extra time and extra money. Not everybody has that to go to the driving range to get on the golf course. And a lot of people are, sort of winter bound. How can I keep working on my game and do it on a regular basis every other day? And there are ways to do that. I've created some fitness exercises, swing patterning. There's thought stuff you can do. There's a lot of stuff you can do. And if people started realizing that, then I think that they might be able to begin to develop or do some training on a regular basis. That's going to actually start to get into their body and allow them to develop a good swing and feel like they can actually go to the range and get on the golf course in a good way. But again, just this notion of commitment and training as opposed to a lesson once in a while and go out there
right.
and then just grumble and complain and go, well, that didn't work and I'm no good.
Well,
I think we're so, or quit the game, say this game's too hard, it's too frustrating. It doesn't really have to be. So, and to your point about, making your range sessions count. In a lot of my lessons and in a lot of these retreats and things we've been doing, I always say to people, if how many of you like to practice? And you kind of get some hands sort of going up and,
right.
Not really. Very few people right off the bat go, oh, yeah, I love to practice. That's just sort of not our mentality. And golf just seems like it's just a chore, and you go out there
right.
and just kind of, they call it scrape balls, right? Pull another one over, keep making the same mistakes and getting frustrated. So I always say to my students, one of my biggest hopes for you is that you will like to practice. By the time, we're done with this lesson or this clinic or this retreat, you're going to like to practice, and you're going to have a lot of good ideas of what to practice and how to practice, and also how to make practice fun and create, some games and some challenges with yourself, with a practice partner, a buddy. So I actually feel most gratified not so much by my golfers going, oh, my handicap just went down 2 shots or 5 strokes or whatever, but by them saying, oh, my God, I love practicing, and now I'm practicing. I like it as much and more as playing. I mean, that thrills me for people to really get involved in their practice and feel that their practice is fun. It's something they want to do, and it's productive. That's just so important.
Well, and that's the thing, Jamie, is I think people will enjoy practice. It's not a bad word when you're getting results.
Yeah.
Well, no, but this is what ends up happening is if people don't feel that they're seeing some sort of improvement, they don't want to go out and practice. It becomes a chore, as you said, and or raking golf balls over, hitting one after another. And there's a lot of different things that you can do to make it fun and interesting. Number one, so that it's not so much like a chore. But you're right. Commitment, I think, is probably one of the biggest issues that I see with the average high handicapper. Is they just don't want to. They want to see improvement, but as you mentioned or alluded to earlier, they want to maybe surf around the internet, find some quick tip videos, or they want to go to somebody's website, or they want the teacher professional, in 5 minutes or less to be able to show vast improvement in their game, but they don't want to put the time into it. And I always say to them as well, I say when you were preparing for your profession, you probably went to school and maybe had to take certain courses and had to have some practical experience as well, but you prepared for it. So what makes you think that you can just go out in the golf course and with a quick lesson or two are going to be able to master it? You have to put the time and the effort into it. And a lot of people just don't do that. And that's what I think elevates the frustration because they're not improving. I talked to somebody the other day. It's actually going to be a guest on the show here in a little while, in about a month's time. And she actually is not a quote-unquote golf professional, but she does things in the golf industry. And she was talking about how just here recently she broke 100 twice in 1 week. And she was just ecstatic about that. Now, to somebody out there that might not sound like a lot, but 100 is probably the hardest milestone for most amateurs to break. Once they break 100 and kind of they can sort of transition beyond that if they're doing the right things. But 100 for a lot of people is very difficult to get through that threshold. So she obviously is starting to find whatever it is that she's been doing, and I don't know all the details, and I'll ask her more when she comes on the program. But this was a huge hurdle for her because this is something that she's been wanting to do for a long time and been unable to do it. But she's obviously put the time and the effort in, and now not only did it once, but did it twice within the same week. So she's very excited and now sort of energized and remotivated to go out and do that. And I think that what you were talking about just a few moments ago with the teacher professionals, it's it's fine and dandy to go out there and connect with somebody. But you're right. It's also on the teacher side as well. We're sometimes reluctant to want to engage if we feel the person's not going to be committed. I certainly want to, have their business, but at the same time, if I don't sense that they're really committed and wanting to improve and become better, and they're just sort of looking for some sort of a quick fix, I really don't. And I work a lot with corporate people, and most of them are not like that. But you get some that they don't want to suck when they go and play in their corporate event, so they just want a few quick tips. And I'll say to them, look, then I'm not who you want to work with, because I'm not going to, just give you there is no quick tip. And that's where you have to sort of guide them and really talk to them and find out, and through the vetting process, through the interview with the students, is you need to find out what their goals are. And if they're just, want to go out there and hit the ball around once in a while, then let them move on. But if they're serious about wanting to make a lifelong commitment to playing good golf, then they've got to make a commitment with you as an instructor.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that, having some, goals, achievable goals, and then just committing to them, along the way, people start to, make progress. And there's nothing like success to energize you and motivate you. Sometimes people say, well, golf's too expensive, or I don't have enough time, that sort of thing. This is where practice really comes in, because practice could take an hour, 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, go over to a driving range. That's something you can do indoors if you're in a climate that doesn't allow for golf year-round. So, practice is a great solution, and to being able to golf more. And that's really, if people put in more time doing that, it's interesting how much the pros practice. We see them out there playing, but we all hear and know how much they practice. And yet most people hit a few balls or try this for, 20 balls or a day or two and go, didn't work. And it's like the old, we got to work it for it to work kind of thing. There's another thing that I think is really interesting, and that is that so many people want to start with their driver. Who doesn't want to hit it? That's the fun club, the sexy club, right? It gives you and but the truth is, in the learning process and the developmental process, it goes what I call the micro to the macrocosm, right? We start small, then we get bigger. So in golf, the macro is the driver, but the micro is putting, short shots, right? Take it back, hit a square, follow through, learn the target line, find out what your feet are doing, what your hands are doing, how to use your knees and your hips, how that relates with your shoulders, these kinds of things. And that's all right there in short shots. So, I always say nobody popped out of the womb an adult, and yet golfers want to just pop on the driving range with their driver. The drivers when we're full grown. Even Tiger Woods learned to play from green to tee. So I think if we take it from the micro to the macro, and that people will find a lot more success. I've never actually told this story in public, so or on the radio or TV, but it's a great story. It's a teaching story. I tell to my students, so if you'll bear with me for a minute. It's called my banjo story. And I am not a musician, right? I'm an athlete, but I love music, want to play, and I just love the sound of the banjo. So, probably 20 years ago, I'd never even seen a banjo in person before, right? And I went to the store called the Fifth String, and I walked in, and this woman shook my hand. She said, "Hi, my name's Phyllis. You can call me Phil. I'm going to be your teacher." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And she put a banjo in my lap, and it's like, it's heavy. It's different from a guitar. But she showed me just the basics, how you, kind of anchor your thumb and your fingers there, and then you have the forward roll, backward roll, alternating roll. And I'm like, oh, cool. That's how you make that rolling sound of the banjo. I was so excited. I went home. And, moving your fingers is like moving your toes. It's hard. So it took me a week. I came back, and I'm like, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, sounding not like rolling, but not too bad. Second lesson, we did the same thing. I'm like, okay, I'm not really rolling yet. I was content, went home, practiced. 2 solid weeks, that's all I did, my right hand, I'm just doing that. I came home back to my lesson. I am rolling. And what do we do the third lesson? Same thing. Forward rolls, backward rolls, alternating rolls. I'm like looking at her like, Phil, come on. I'm right. Phil. She looks at me. She says, "Who's the banjo sensei?" I go, "You are, Phil." And So I went home, and I'm like watching TV. I'm bored. I'm just doing my rolls. I'm like, oh, my God, I'm starting to get a little pissed. And I come back for my fourth lesson. What do we do? The same thing.
Right.
By now I'm mouthing off. Phil, this is boring. Phil, this is so slow. Phil, I don't want to pay you anymore. Phil. She's just like glares at me. Go home and practice. Now I go home, I'm like talking to my friends on the phone with one hand, I'm rolling away, I'm like, can you believe this? And I was so frustrated and upset. Fifth lesson, I come back, well, she shows me the fingering with my left hand. In 10 minutes, I whip off this beautiful Cripple Creek classic banjo song. And the next month, I had this whole repertoire of songs that sounded really great. In 2 months, I was a pretty decent banjo player with a pretty good repertoire. I was speeded up. My quality was so much higher. And so I tell that story to my golf students. Why? Because it's like, look, let's really work on your putting stroke. Let's really work on your short shots. If I could, I would confiscate all your clubs except for your putter and a couple wedges. Maybe I'll give you your 9-iron. But that's it for a month. Will you take the banjo challenge and we work on just those fundamentals, just the basics of how that core of the swing works. And I tell them, you know what, you're going to have a lot more fun than I had for a month just with one hand doing the same thing, because you could you can have shots up to 100 yards away. You can have low shots, high shots, pitch shots. You can go to the left, to the right, short pins, long pins. You can make this really interesting. You can create little holes, get onto the green putt. Can you get up and down? You can make competitions with a friend who's maybe doing the banjo challenge with you. Just work on that, and I guarantee you by the time we add your 8-iron and 5-iron and hybrids and fairway woods and get to your driver, you're going to be doing just fine, and we're going to get to your driver much more quickly and with much more quality than if you just, went at it the other way around. So I've actually had some students take me up on the banjo challenge. They surrender their golf bag. I put it in my trunk in my garage, right? And we work it. They work it, and they really make up some good practice games. They have a lot of fun. Boy, do they get a good short game, which will hold them instead forever in their entire golf lifetime. And then they start adding the longer clubs, and they start being able to really make those shots, shape shots, do all kinds of cool things, only because they guaranteed that foundation. I mean, with the banjo, if I would have been worrying about my right hand, my left hand, reading the music, I would have never gotten there. I had that one basic so down, I never thought about it again. I had brain space and body-mind bandwidth to really work on the rest of it,
Right, and that really encapsulates the point that you're trying to make, and I agree with you. I remember working with a gentleman for probably the second time. I think the first time we went out and talked about some different things, but the second time we hit the range and he kept looking over at his golf bag, and I said, "What are you looking at?" And he I could tell he was looking at his driver. Because we were working with he had a wedge in his hand, and we were working on and he kept looking over at his golf bag, and I said, I'm going to go and essentially what you said, I said, I'm going to go and take your golf bag and lock it in your trunk, and we're just going to stick with this one club if you don't stop looking over, because he just wanted to, because it's just naturally, especially I think more so for men than women. I think it just sort of, the testosterone gets going. They want to pull that driver out and they want to, hit that thing 280 or 300 yards or whatever. They want to do the Bubba Watson, if you will, with that driver. But you're right. You need to start at the other end, and that's a great analogy. The banjo. I think that's a great way to put it, because you do any instrument that you want to learn, or any sport or game that you want to learn, there are certain basic fundamentals that you need to learn first, and that is probably the hardest part of the whole thing. Once you learn and get those down, once you get the fundamentals, like Jack Nicklaus always used to talk about how the thing that he did when, you alluded to earlier about winter, when he sort of when the bear came out of hibernation, the first thing that he did, he didn't go out there and pull the driver out and just start, beating balls. He worked on his fundamentals. He worked on his grip. He worked on his stance, his posture, and he essentially worked on his entire posture and alignment and grip and so forth at the very beginning of every season. Now, the PGA obviously plays a little different season than when he was out. Now it goes pretty much all year round. But, they used to stop pretty much in the fall when he was still playing, and then they sometimes would have a couple of months off. Now, again, they're going pretty much all year round. But that's what he worked on. If you ever watched his video, Golf My Way, he talked about that. That was the main thing that he did throughout his entire career, is he always worked on his fundamentals. And that's what he spent the most time on. He didn't spend days and days out on a driving range hitting balls. He worked on his fundamentals, and then he worked on certain things. He wasn't sitting there working on necessarily all different types of shots either. And a lot of people spend a lot of time working on things that are not going to bear fruit. You can hit 1,000 drives, but I don't know of a PGA player to date that won a tournament because of his driver. Now, driver may help, but it's not one with the driver. And this is something that's very hard to get into a lot of amateurs' minds.
Well, I mean, the driver is obviously it's the most difficult club in a certain sense to hit. It's the longest. It's got the biggest swing arc. It's going the fastest speed. It's harder to wield, face it. And so, and the variability, therefore, is that much greater as well. So, trying to handle a driver when you don't really have sort of the core down and the basics down, and those aren't really solid, is just kind of a recipe for disaster. A lot of times, like many people, I have people come to me because they're slicing their driver, right, or they can't hit their driver.
Right.
And they come and I go, well, great, take out your wedge. They're like, no, my driver. I'm like, I know. And, the LPGA says be student-centered, do what they want to do. But, I think there's a place for some guidance and understanding the learning process. And so it's like, well, take out your wedge. And, the people, and you're right, the guys in particular who are willing to, take out their wedge and kind of let's get this grooved in, or what people like to call muscle memory. I always ask them, well, what are you remembering? And so when you do consistent practice, and we know now from the neuroscientists that the reason it takes 30 days to create a new habit is because it takes your brain cells a certain amount of time based on repetitions to grow these little dendrites, and those little dendrites find each other, and then they create what we call neural pathways, neuromuscular pathways that are firing from our brain through our nervous system to our muscles. And that's a process that takes some time, and it certainly takes repetition. This is why practice is important, not because it's moral, not because it's a good thing, but because it's just the way our neurophysiology, neuromuscular systems are wired. And so when we pay attention to that and we work in that natural order, we start to go, oh, I'm starting to feel it. This is getting easier. I'm getting it. And speaking of Jack Nicklaus, or taking time with the fundamentals, and for me, so the fundamentals also include what I call the Ki fundamentals. Our energetic, organizational ones are about being centered and balanced, and being able to train our nervous system to be in a calm, connected, properly organized, the left, the right, the lower, upper body, and getting things organized. And then we start to feel like we're in that place where the puzzle pieces are put together properly. When we're in that place, we feel, oh, this is comfortable, this will work. Now I actually can follow this arc. I can do these things. So, when we can set our nervous system, and we do that through these fundamentals, and once that happens, we can start to do a lot. But if we skip over that, we're just constantly in frustration and in agitation and all this kind of stuff. And it's not really a big mystery why we're there, and it's also not a big mystery how we can, be somewhere else, be in a good place that works. And, golfers tend to feel like this is too hard, it doesn't work, and, that just doesn't really have to be the case, and it's not rocket science, and it doesn't take, just born talent, and I just don't have it. Everybody can learn it. I can remember when I used to have my Aikido dojo for many, many years, and I would have some people come in there who were, I would just kind of shake my head in the beginning and go, oh, my God, this person's so uncoordinated. This person is, never going to be any good. And, some people are seemingly more sort of physically coordinated than others. But I'm telling you, I never had a student not even the most quote-unquote uncoordinated people in the beginning not progress and become very coordinated, become what you would have thought was naturally talented. Why? Because they show up, they do the practices, they do it regularly, they have that commitment, and they're just there. Just do it, and do the good stuff. And guess what? The body, the whole system wants to work. It wants to work well. It wants to work in harmony. And golf swing really requires harmonious action. And when and so everyone can do it. It's really, really doable.
It's actually easier.
I was just gonna,
go ahead.
I was just going to read this beautiful quote. This is 1908, okay? It's a classic golf book, The Mystery of Golf. This guy, Arnold Hultane. But I love this quote. In no other game that I know of is, first, the whole anatomical frame brought into such strenuous yet delicate action at every stroke. Or second, does the mind play so important a part in governing the actions of the muscles. So what's cool is when we golf and when we engage in practice, when we engage in learning, that's what we're engaging in. It's a really cool journey. It's a cool engagement. You may go out and shoot a 90 or a 100 or a 74. You don't know what you're going to go out and shoot, but wow, it's such a neat thing to engage in, and you're so engaged in this whole mysteries and magic of the body-mind process and how you work, and you get feedback every time with the contact on the golf ball, the flight the ball took, the score that you made, how you handled the situation, the lie, sometimes the adversity. It's just such a great thing to really involve yourself in terms of self-development.
And we've talked about so many times here is, golf really mimics life in so many ways, and that's why it really is a journey. I can't believe this hour has just blown by, but we've only got a few minutes left, and I wanted to give you just a quick chance to talk about, you've got sort of a top 10 list of your own for people that are obviously winter-bound, let's say, or winter challenge when it comes to their golf game, so they can do some things indoor. Maybe just give us a quick overview if you can, Jamie, and then we've got to wrap it up.
I actually created a golf program that has the top 10 things you need to know about golf over 10 months, and then the top 10 things in those. And, it's like focus on each one at a time, and, setting up's important, warm-ups, putting, short game, full swing, all these things. I have created a lot of fitness exercises called Make Your Golf Club Your Health Club, swing patterning exercises that you can do indoors or outdoors, in your basement, a driving range. I had a really great story. This was a few years back. A woman found my KI Golf DVDs online on my website and bought them for her husband. This was in New York as a gift for Christmas. So, and he just got into my DVDs and the books, the manuals that go with them, and set up his own little practicing in his basement with a net. And that's all he did. And then came May. It was a pretty day, first spring day. You could get out to the driving range, and he goes, and they're in New York. And there's some, guys out there from the golf companies, and they've got all their launch monitors and every computerized thing to check all the ball flights and spin rates, et cetera. And so he goes, can I get on there? Sure. And he hits all these beautiful shots and really consistent metrics. It was just amazing. And the guys looked at him, and they go, where do you winter? And he looked at him like he didn't even understand the question. I mean, winter wasn't a verb for him. Where do I winter? Phoenix, Scottsdale. He's like, where do I winter? He's like, I've just been here all winter. I've been in my garage. I've been in my basement. I just have been doing these exercises I got off these DVDs my wife got me. And the golf guys were like, oh my God, we thought you've been playing all winter long. I mean, this is amazing readings, and your consistency is incredible, and all your numbers are in the ranges they're supposed to be. You're doing great, sir. And he goes, well, it's all I did all winter. So that was a great story, but it also made me feel good, and it really was a validation of what I'm trying to say, you can do these kinds of practices, and it's about the consistency and regularity, and it doesn't necessarily require a ton of time, a ton of money, perfect sunny, hot golf weather, wintering, having the ability to winter somewhere. Not at all. It's just about engaging with our own body-mind system ourselves in a consistent way, doing some pretty much correct stuff, and voila, everything starts coming online, just like my quote-unquote uncoordinated martial arts students who progressed beautifully. They became some of my favorite students. They were amazing, just because they came and did it.
Right, exactly. Jamie, thank you very much for making it actually a very interesting Coach's Corner panel discussion tonight. I enjoyed listening to some of your stories, and that to really help some of the beginners out there. And you're right. You don't have to spend every day out at the practice tee, and you certainly don't have to necessarily even play every day. There's a lot of things, especially now as we transition into the winter months, if you're not in a situation where you're able to migrate south here or out west in some warmer climates, there's a lot of great things that you can do indoors to keep yourself fresh and practice up until you are able to get that spring thaw. Jamie, real quick, if you want to give your website information out, and for those that are interested in reaching out to you personally, but also maybe interested in getting some of the DVDs and that you have available that will help them through this winter transition, please let the listeners know.
Well, yeah, thanks, Ted. By the way, I loved our date. It's always so great to talk to you, and he's just a wonderful conversationalist, so thank you. People can contact me. My DVDs are available online at www.kiaigolf.com, KIAIGOLF.com, kiaigolf.com. Easy to reach me at 760-492-GOLF. 4653, 760-492-4653. And I've really started to do a bunch of golf lessons online. Skype calls are beautiful. Mm-hmm. I can see exactly what you're doing and give you a lot of good coaching and give people exercises and things that they need to be doing, talk with them about, some of the mind-body interface, help them understand these concepts, see what they're doing, give them a lot of good things to practice. And so, believe it or not, the wonders of technology, I love Skype lessons. They really work, and it's having that guidance and having that eye on you,
right.
So it works and it becomes fun. So that's also an option as well. And people, free to drop me an email through my website or give me a call. Happy to talk and be of service.
Perfect. Well, Jamie, as always, thank you very much for joining me on Golf Talk Live on the Coach's Corner panel. Great discussion. Thank you for all of your insight always, and I look forward to having you come back again. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk soon.
Real good. Thank you so much, Ted. Okay. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. All right, that was my special guest on the Coach's Corner panel. As I mentioned earlier, we had a little bit of a change of plans. Michael Wheeler, was going to join us, but unfortunately had to bow out due to a family emergency, so he wasn't able to join us tonight. So Jamie and I just had some interesting discussion on how to help some of the beginners out there. I got another great guest coming up here. He's ready in the wings. Let me just do a quick introduction, and I'll bring Mr. Patri out. Tom Patri, of course, is a PGA golf coach and a golf teacher. He's one of Golf Magazine's top 100 teachers in America and has been a leading voice in the golf instruction for over 30 years. He's taught at every level of the game, coaching more than 100 PGA Tour, LPGA Tour, and PGA Club professionals, and literally hundreds of top juniors and amateurs. The game has taken Tom around the world, first as a distinguished player, and now as one of golf's most knowledgeable and decorated teachers. In 1990, he became Director of Instruction at the prestigious Westchester Country Club in Rye, New York, where he worked for 11 years at the home of the famed PGA Tour stop, the Westchester Classic. He now resides in Naples, Florida, with his wife, Denise, and son, Palmer Jackson, and is the founder and owner of TP Golf Services. So let's bring Mr. Tom Patri onto the show. Good evening, Tom. Welcome to Golf Talk Live.
Ted, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing very well, Tom. Welcome back. I should say welcome back, because you've been on the show before a few times, both as a guest, and I think you were on a couple of panel discussions. I believe it was last year.
That's correct. I was, and it's a pleasure to be back with you. You do a wonderful job with this format. I was listening to your last guest, and it's a real service to the players out there listening in. So thanks for having me.
Not a problem, Tom. Always glad to have you guys come on in. And let me say first off, before we get started, Tom, let me thank you, because I know how hard it is for a lot of the guys and gals out there in this profession to be able to come on a show like this in the evening, because I know you guys are, as I am, out all day long, working, trying to grow this game and help golfers do better, and then to come in the evening during really family time and come on and give this time of yours. So I appreciate that as well.
Ted, I appreciate it. As you said, I had a full slate today. I taught from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. straight through with no break, no lunch. I ran home and grabbed a shower, grabbed a couple of pieces of something to eat, and I'm talking to you from out of my car in my driveway because it's the quietest place I can be. I've got four big dogs inside who want to listen in, so I figured I'd hide in the car for an hour with you and talk to you so I didn't get mugged by my herd of canines in there.
Yeah, you wouldn't be the first that's had to do that. I know a few people have had to do that in the past. So thanks, Tom. I appreciate it. Tom, let's talk. There's a couple things I want to really talk to you about. I know there's some things that you want to get out there for the listeners, not just for the players out there that might be listening in and wanting to improve their game, but I know also some of the other teaching professionals can certainly learn, and that's really one of the other things that I try to do with this program is I try to not only help the average high handicapper out there, and even some of the better players, but I like to exchange information with some of our fellow teacher professionals. So, but first off, let's talk a little bit about you as far as playing. I understand that you finished quite well, actually, in the Long Island Senior Open not too long ago. So tell us a little bit about that and how you did.
Boy, Ted, you're scraping the bottom of the barrel here. I really miss playing competitively. It was such a big part of my life 150 or so years ago, and I try to still play 3 or 4 or 5 events a year, and at the end of the season up in Long Island, the Long Island Senior Open was being played in my neck of the woods not too far away on a really hard golf course called Laurel Links under some bad weather conditions, and I got lucky and got it around halfway decently, and I think I finished 4th or 5th, but yeah, it was fun to compete a little bit again and get the juices flowing. So thanks for mentioning that. That's a big plug. Yep. And like I said, I was scraping the bottom of the barrel.
No, I'm sure you did. I'm sure you did phenomenal. And it's hard doing what we do because it's not always easy to be teaching all day and getting some play time in as well. So it's nice to be able to take the coaching hat off and the teaching hat off and just go out and enjoy really a game that we really both love. This is probably one of the biggest complaints I hear from most people in our profession is they don't get to play as much as they would think. A lot of I'm sure some of the younger ones that you've talked to say, "Oh, this is great. I'm going to be able to play golf all the time." But then once you get a full slate, that's not always easy. So it's great to be able to take some time away to do that. And you also played in another tournament as well with a partner, Steve Scott. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, Steve Scott's a really good buddy of mine. And for those of you who are educated listeners out there, Steve Scott is a young man that a while back took Tiger to extra holes in U.S. Amateur and really had a couple opportunities to beat him in the final and came up one short in sudden death, but he was an All-American at the University of Florida, 2-time All-SEC Player of the Year, a Walker Cup player, and Steve and I are good buddies, and we played the last couple of years in the Met PGA Pro Championship, and a couple of years back we finished 4th. This year we happened to finish 11th, and I was very proud of myself because I held up my end of the bargain there. Because Steve's a heck of a player and still plays at a very, very high level. Right,
and as I said, it's not always easy, when you're teaching and coaching all the time to be able to get away to even practice your own game. That's probably something that you, I'm sure, find challenging from time to time is having the time to be able to go and work on your own game.
Teddy, I think that's a great comment for people out there. I'm 57 years old now, and one of the things I try my very best to do every day that I go to teach, and like today I had a full day from 8 o'clock to 6 o'clock in the evening. So knowing that was going to be my schedule today, and it takes me about an hour to set up my lesson tee every day in the morning. Mm-hmm. I got there in the dark, just after sunlight this morning, and I I rushed my setup a little bit, got my tee all set up, and I hit balls for about 25 minutes before I started my day. At the end of the day, at 6 o'clock, I broke it down. It was pitch blackout. Well, pitch blackout in the sense that the sun was going over the horizon. I hit about another 20 or 30 balls. Now, on a day that I don't have a full slate, if I have an hour open or I have a cancellation, usually I'll bring my lunch with me to the tee, and I'll hit balls for 20 or 30 minutes and try to putt. So I try to put my hands on the club at some juncture of my day every day, because I think it's very, very important as a teacher to have the credibility to be able to demonstrate things you ask people to do. If you can't demonstrate a shot with some competence, I don't know where your credibility is. So I try to keep my hands on the club. I try to still play some holes. I love giving them playing lesson. I do play along with the student when I give a playing lesson. I think it's I think again your credibility is tested there, and I think that challenge is a good one for the teaching professional. So I still love to hit shots and play the game, and I try to stay as connected as I can to the actual endeavor.
Well, and also, Tom, too, I think what it really shows is, and I don't care what level you're playing at, everybody hits a bad shot. It gives you an opportunity during a playing lesson, if you happen to hit a, not a less than perfect shot, to be able to show, especially if you hit it into the rough a little bit or you hit it into a trouble area. It creates a perfect opportunity to show your student not only that you can hit some errant shots once in a while, but how you bring in course management and how you now manage from that point on errant shot.
I think that's a wonderful point. I mean, I'm not a big fan, and I'm going to get in trouble here, so bear with me. I'm not a big fan of equitable stroke control. I'm not a big fan of adjusting your score. I'm not a big fan of the handicap system that we employ in this country today. I think equitable stroke control set the game back 100 years because it allowed the amateur to pick the ball and put it in his pocket and not finish a hole and not recover and not learn how to recover and deal with circumstance. So I think we did a terrible injustice to the game and to the amateur player in this country when we changed the handicap system the way we did. And I think it's really set back the advancement of play in this country.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think that something that we want students to really be able to pick up, especially the beginners. I mean, Jamie and I talked a little bit about this before, about seeking out a professional to work with, and you obviously have to be willing to make a commitment. And I'm not talking about the teacher; I'm talking about the students now. This is something that really has lacked for, I think, in my opinion, a long, long time. Is they want these quick fixes. They want this, and I'm going to talk a little bit about technology. You and I talked about a year ago when you were on the show. We talked about technology a little bit. I'm going to bring that back into the conversation in a minute, and then there's something else I want to touch on with you as well to get your thoughts on it. But this is something that I think that I'm sure, Tom, that you try to get your students. Not just the good golfers and the good students, but the ones that maybe are just starting out, is to really get them to be committed in not just lessons and time with you, but committed away from you as well and working on some of those fundamentals that you're teaching them.
I think so much of golf and the journey of improvement is trial and error, and I think that the student leaves a golf lesson sometimes a little delusional in that they've paid a fee for a lesson, somebody's given them some information, and now they're all better. And I think that's probably the furthest thing from the truth. I think that you take the information and you tailor it to your needs, you tailor it to your golf game, to your physical abilities, and now you've got to go out in this thing called practice time, and you've got to go through some trial and error, and you've got to fall on your face a couple of times and get back up and persevere. And that's all part of your golf journey. And I think that people have this misconception that we as golf professionals or teaching professionals or coaches, whoever we are, we wave our magic wand, you hand us a check, and you're all better. And that's just not the way it works. That's just not the way it works.
It would be nice if it worked that quick. It'd be a lot faster process.
Actually, Ted, if that worked that way, could I come and see you in the morning? You can help me out.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's the thing, and that's again something that we touched on a little bit in the panel discussion, Jamie and I, is everybody wants these quick fixes. John Hughes from Orlando was on the program a while back, and he raised a question in the panel discussion, and we talked about when he and I were on together What would you do if somebody came up and said, look, I only got 5 minutes, I've got a corporate event, what can you do to help me out here? How would you handle that? What would you do? What are some of the things that you would, what would you say if you had literally 5 minutes to work with somebody? And so we batted that around. So I'm just curious, and again, not to throw any pressure on you here, Tom, but if you had a situation like, and I'm sure you've done, what would you do if somebody said, look, I only got 5 minutes?
5 minutes before I'm going to play, if I'm doing anything, Ted, I'm going to make some golf swings that just allow my body to get a little bit more supple. I'm going to focus on balance and tempo, and I'm going to go hit a couple of putts and enjoy my day. I mean, 5 minutes to go is no time to be turning the game of golf, which is already very difficult, as we know, into war and peace. So when I'm warming up and I've got 5 minutes to go, I want to make sure that my body is getting a little looser, a little more supple, that I'm making a very tempoed, very balanced golf swing. I'm playing well within myself, and I can go to the first tee feeling like I have a chance at a solid golf shot. Teddy, I don't do anything in my warm-up ever, and I never did as a player, as a competitor, during a warm-up session to analyze what's going on. And
right.
Maybe that sounds very, very strange. Maybe that's very strange or foreign to some listeners, but if you've gone to the practice to the practice tee or the practice range in a warm-up session in analysis mode, you're already in a world of hurt and a lot of trouble. It's like to me, a round of golf is not an open book test. We don't get to bring our notes to the test. If you're not ready by then, you're not going to be ready. So I always looked at warm-up as warm-up and practice as practice and lessons as lessons. And they're three very different arenas for me, and I treat them all very, very differently with my students. And I try to teach people how to warm up properly. I try to teach them how to focus on the correct things during warm-up. I try to teach them how to practice efficiently and what they should be trying to focus on when they practice and get out of a practice session. And I try to teach them actually how to take a lesson. God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, because during a lesson you're supposed to listen twice as much as you speak.
Right.
And a lot of students don't comply with that physical conformity. So I think you have to learn how to take a lesson. I think you have to learn how to practice. And I think you have to learn how to warm up. And they're very different endeavors.
Yeah, and that's so true. I try to, if I'm dealing with a situation like that as well, where a student or somebody comes up to me. A lot of times I'll come up, I'll hit some balls myself on the range, and somebody will come up to me and they'll ask me, look, what can you do for me? I've only got a few minutes here, and I'm going to play with my regular foursome, and I'll say to them, well, I'm not going to change your swing. I'm not going to do anything of that nature, because it's just going to make the matters worse. You have to play with what you brought that day. But what I would do is make sure that you've got a strategy, you've got a game plan for that round. What have you, what did you, if you're playing a course that you've never played before, obviously it's a little bit more difficult because you're not familiar with the territory. But don't try to analyze your swing, or don't try to make big changes. Do that after. Come and see me after the round, but just focus on your tempo, your balance, and your timing of your golf swing. Just swing smooth and easy, and don't try to kill it. And if the driver's not working on the range, if you're not hitting your driver very well, leave it in the bag.
Ted, I had a situation. I think it was the summer before last. I'm trying to be accurate about this. I think it was the summer before last. And I was up in Long Island during the summer teaching, and it was a late afternoon situation, and it was kind of quiet. And a member came out to hit some balls, and he turned to me. I wasn't really actively engaged in the lesson. He said to me, would you want to go out and play 9 holes? I said, sure, let's go. I have nothing to do. I'm nothing on the book. It was an unusual situation. I said, let's go play. I welcome the chance to get out there and play a little bit. And he said, why don't you hit a few balls and warm up? And because he'd already hit some balls. I said, sure, let me hit a few. I hit a couple of golf balls, and I hadn't played it in a while, and I was sitting kind of a little bit of a weak cut out there, and I said, okay, I'm fine, I'm ready. I've hit 10 to 12 balls. That's a big warm up for me nowadays. Let's go to the first tee.
Right.
So we went out to the first tee, and for 9 holes, I hit this little weak cut around the golf course, and we came off the ninth green. He said, let's have a Coke. I want to ask you a question. So he sat down in the clubhouse, and he said, I don't understand what just happened. I said, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, I watched you warm up. You hit this little weak cut, and we went and played 9 holes. And you hit the little weak cut around. I said, stop a second. I said, what did I shoot? Do you know what I shot? He said, no, I really don't know. I said, well, look at the scorecard. You kept score out there. I said, look at the scorecard. I added up. So he ended up, I shot 35. And
right.
I said, I played with what I had today. So I stood on the right side of the tee. I stood on the right side of the tee box, aimed down the left third of the fairway, and I let it bleed back into the middle of the fairway. I went and found it, and I hit it again. I said, I wasn't going to fix that weak cut in a 5-minute or 10-minute warm-up. So I made a commitment on the tee that that's the shot I had today, and that's what I was going to go do. You know. Yeah,
that's exactly what my point is as well. I think too many people, with technology and the internet, they're surfing around trying to find that 5-minute swing tip that's going to cure them, and it just doesn't exist. You have to make that commitment if you want to improve. And if you're going to play, whether it be a corporate event or you're just playing with your group, don't go out there and try to fix things 5 minutes before you're about to play. Just go out and play the best that you can with what you've got that day. And in your case, you had a little cut and it worked for you. You shot 1 under par on 9. So, I
want to be clear. It wasn't a little cut. It was an ugly, skanky, bad feeling, heel-driven piece of, what. So.
Yeah, I know.
It about matched my talent level for the day.
Right, exactly. Listen, we've all been there, so I know exactly what you're talking about. Tom, I want to give you an opportunity because I know now you're down in the Naples area. I know you've kind of gone back and forth in the past, but now you've decided to be smart about things and come down where us warm folks are living now in the south and sort of taking up residence, if you will, in Naples for the winter. And since we are moving into the winter months here real quick, you've got some winter schools and you're doing some private instruction, of course, down in Naples. So let's talk a little bit about that. What have you got working on down here? And for those folks that are going to be migrating here, and some I'm sure are already down there, but for those over the next few months, what have you got cooking down in Naples?
Teddy, let me back up just a second. First of all,
sure.
For those of the folks out there that don't know, I've done back and forth between New York and Florida, teaching at 2 different places for 34 years, and
right.
I came to a decision about midsummer this year that was going to be enough for me, and I regrettably and sadly, but and now happy about it, resigned my position at Friar's Head.
Right.
And I've made a decision that Naples, which has been home since 2001, primary residence, I'd spend more time here. Now I will during the summer. I think my best thoughts right now, Ted, is in June, July, August, and September. I will spend a week a month in New York with what I call my hardcore, diehard guys. So I will visit them a week a month and work with them.
Sure.
I think I'll spend a week a month. I'm trying to finalize it, so I really can't announce it, but at another location in the Mid-Atlantic area. Mm-hmm. And then I will spend a week a month in Naples, teaching from 7 a.m. to 12 noon, because as we all know, in Florida during the summer, about 2 o'clock every day, the sky opens up. And then I will actually spend 1 week a month, which is going to be absolutely heaven for me, which I've never done it in my life, taking a week off a month during the summer and fishing in the Keys with my beautiful wife. So I'm pretty excited about the change. I'm pretty excited about the opportunity to move around a little bit and do some things out of the box. I also will be available and do some what I call guest schools. So a professional like yourself or a head professional at a club in the Northeast can have me in for 2 days with him to team teach a group of his members. And I'm going to get some information out via Facebook and via social media in the near future about that program also. Okay. But yes, I'm in Naples right now. It was 91 degrees today, Ted, from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. I came home, I was exhausted, and I can't wait for it to cool off a little bit. But Naples is absolute paradise. I'm glad to be here. And, our winter golf season is well underway, and I'm at the Golf Lodge at the Quarry in North Naples, just off of Immokalee Road, and I'm doing private instruction. I'm doing golf schools. I'm doing short game schools, and I'm very proud to announce to you, you'll like this, I've joined forces with one of your fellow Canadians, a young lady named Gail Graham, who you probably know that name. Right. Gail played the LPGA Tour for a long period of time, successfully won a couple of events, actually won the Australian Masters, and Gail is now on staff with me at TP Golf Schools, and she'll be joining me this winter, and we're really excited to have her on board.
Fantastic. Add a little Canadian flair to Tom's.
There you go. Yeah, and Gail still plays very nicely. Gail's she'll hate me doing this, but she's 51 years young and still plays very, very nicely. And I think that not only women in the Naples area, but men in the area will benefit from her great knowledge and her wonderful playing ability and her experience playing the tour. So like I said, I'm excited to have her on board at TP Golf Schools, and she's actually started this week, and we're just excited to have her with us.
Well, I'll tell you what, Tom, and I'll throw this out there now. We'll chat a little bit later at some point about this, but I would love to have you back on sometime in the new year, and once she's gotten her feet a little bit wet with you there, and have the two of you come on, and we'll talk about some of the things that you guys are doing together at your schools.
That'd be wonderful, and I'd welcome that opportunity, just not only for me but for her.
Sure.
So the teaching arena is still a little bit new to her,
right.
But I've already watched her interaction with students, and she does a wonderful, wonderful job.
Well, you can let her know that I would love to have her come on the show, and both of you can come on, and we'll let little grass grow under her feet, so to speak, and as I said, get her teaching chops, if you will, down in Naples with you there, and I'll have the two of you on at a later point next year, and we can talk a little bit more.
Thank you very much for that. That'd be wonderful.
All right, not a problem. All right, also, too, now I understand you had mentioned in some of your notes that you had sent over that your website is going mobile, or are you going mobile?
Yeah, the website is now in a mobile format, and I was, as you know, Ted, I'm a dinosaur, and I didn't understand the difference between a mobile a website application on a laptop or a home computer versus on an iPad or an iPhone. Right. And I don't know if a lot of our listeners realize this, but if you're going to have your website in a format where somebody can open it up on a phone or a tablet without it looking crunched or awkward or not readable, you have to go to a mobile format or platform. And I just had that completed, so now people can find me on their phone, on their tablet at www.tompatri.com. Have it open up with total clarity and totally able to navigate that website. And it's we've made some changes to the site. We've updated it a little bit. We've added some things to it, kind of made it a little bit more fun and interactive. And there's some really neat things on there. So check it out.
We'll certainly will do. I think you have to transition now, and this actually is a good segue into what I wanted to talk to you about. When you were on the first time, I don't know if you remember this or not, we talked a little bit about technology, and one of the things that we talked about was how, and I think we both understand there's a need, and there's certainly a place for technology out there, but sometimes it can be a little bit too heavily relied on, and not enough teaching ends up happening. And one of the comments that I don't know if it was me or you that had said this, but what would happen if the either the batteries died or the power went out? They need to be able to follow. I think I might have actually said it, but I know we were in conversation. But what I wanted to talk to you is I don't want to go over that because I've mentioned it several times. I'm sure if you've listened to the programs before, I've mentioned it many, many times. And don't get me wrong, and for you teachers out there that love your Flightscopes and TrackMan and all this other stuff, I love them too. But my point is that sometimes I think that there's some of you out there, and I think it's more the younger guys, to be honest, because they get all caught up in this stuff, is they're looking at the screen all the time, and they're not really paying attention to what's going on with the student. And I think they're doing really a double disservice. But the other thing I want to talk about is social media. We all understand social media is an extremely powerful tool. But it also, too, can be, and I hate to use this word, abused. And the reason why I say this, Tom, is I'm kind of like you. I won't necessarily say that I'm a dinosaur, but I understand, technology about as much as the next guy. But I think that there's a lot of people out there that are relying too heavily on that, and you see it all the time. I mean, for instance, I'll give you an example, and I want your feedback. I post this show and the women's show every week. Monday nights I post the women's show for Tuesday morning show. Wednesdays I post this, and I do it obviously in a lot of the golf groups, and I do it on my own pages and stuff. And that's it. I see people, the same people, day in, day out, all day long, because I can see their feed, that are constantly in social media. And I'm thinking to myself, how do they have time to do anything else? Is there a danger, do you think, getting too wrapped up in social media? There's certainly, it's a powerful business tool, but can we get too wrapped up in the technology and into the social aspect of it?
You know, Ted, that's a really interesting question. I was totally, I'm going to embarrass myself here a little bit, but I was totally unaware or unschooled or uneducated about social media up till about 5 years ago, maybe even 4 years ago.
Right.
And I had a student come to me who was an ex-senior marketing guy at Campbell Soups, and he's a wonderful friend of mine. He's a student of mine, and he looked at me one day in a practice, and he was he was not being condescending. He was trying to be helpful. He said to me, he said, your website is a dinosaur.
Yeah.
And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, it's not up to date. It's not interactive. It doesn't function very well. It's not easily navigated. He goes, you got to update your world, man, and you don't have any presence on social media. So he introduced me to a woman in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, who owns a company called Quantum Think, a lady named Candy Roberts. And I went for a consult, and she sat me down, and she said, what are you trying to accomplish? And I said, well, I'm trying to grow my business and do this and do that, and this is who I'm trying to reach. This is my target audience. And she said, well, I can help you. And I said, I don't think I can afford that. And she said, let me show you what it would cost you. Long story short, Ted, it was very affordable. I've been with her 5 years.
Right.
She's absolutely changed my exposure and presence in that world. She does most of the posts that I feed information to her. I participate,
sure.
But most of the things you see on my Facebook page, not all of them, most of the things you see on my Twitter feed, on my LinkedIn, on my Facebook, most of it I am not posting. Somebody is posting for me.
Sure.
I provided the content, which a lot of work goes into, but I don't sit on that. I don't sit on that platform during the day because, as you know, you and I are out teaching, trying to make a living during the day. Now,
right.
At night I come home and I review certain things, and I make additions, and I move things around and make comments, and maybe I'll post a picture from the day or something. Maybe I'll post something in the morning before my day starts. But I don't have any time, like you said, during the day to be screwing around with social media. Has it helped me? Has it brought me business? Absolutely it has. No doubt about it. It's increased my business. And the people you're talking about, I see those things because I review pages at night, the people who have linked to me. There are people out there, like you said, in our business that are, pardon me, and I'm going to get in trouble again, are pretenders. They're out there posting all the time, all day long, and you see what you see the time of the feed, and you know that it's right in the middle of the day, and there's 7,000 posts on their site, so you know they're not teaching, but they're presenting themselves as these wonderful teaching minds or coaching minds. Well, it's a bunch of BS. So, is there abuse in social media? Is there content that is stolen, or is there content that is falsified? Is there content that is over the top? Absolutely, there is. Absolutely, and there's no real policing of that, and there's nothing really illegal about that. So it's going to go on. I think that the average student, average person out there that's listening to you and I tonight has to realize when they go on social media and look at some things, how to read between the lines a little bit better.
Right. Well,
as to the value of what they're reading.
Right. I guess really the point that I'm getting at with it, Tom, is, again, it falls into this sort of technology issue. You're 100% right. I think you have to have, in this day and age, to be in. It's kind of like if you roll it back a few years, when they used to have the old telex machines, and a lot of people, some of the young ones out there don't probably know what I'm talking about. But it was the predecessor to the fax machine, and of course now everything's email and everything else. If you didn't have a fax machine, when that came along, you were closing up shop because everybody wanted to communicate. So there definitely is a place and there is a time, and there is no better networking tool than some of the various different social medias, whether it be Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, and some of the other ones, Instagram, what have you. I mean, you have to get your brand out there. And there's ways that you can kind of cheat. For instance, you can link a lot of them together. So if you post on one, it automatically rolls out into the other 2 or 3, whatever you may be linked in.
Correct.
But the danger, I guess, that I look at, Tom, is this, and what I concern about. We already, if you look at growing the game, let's talk about growing the game for a second here. There's really only so many areas that we can grow this game. We've got the women's market, of course. There's still plenty of room to grow there, and you've got your junior market. The problem is that the junior market, women are a little bit different depending on what age group they are, but the junior market, a lot of them are very tech savvy. They're very into their iPhones, their iPads, and there's no communication skills being developed. And to be really an effective teacher, and it doesn't necessarily have to be golf, but anything, there has to be communication between you and the student. And if everybody's got their head down in a machine, you're losing that ability to be able to convey the information that you want. And you can do all the videos you want, you can do all of the technology that you want. What's happening is you're creating a situation, as an example, where people want that 5-minute fix. They don't want to spend a half an hour anymore. And the problem is people are not willing to, what I talked about earlier, want to make that commitment and spend the time learning how to play and enjoy this game. They just want everything now. And technology has been driving that, and the social media has driven. So how do we find a happy balance? How do you find a happy balance?
Well, Ted, I think, first of all, I think you are absolutely right, 1,000% right on. So we agree. Okay, I think that
right.
I look at so many of these young guys today, and they like you said, they never look up from the screen. They just don't look up from the screen. So that's troubling for me. I think that the Tom Patris and Ted and the Butch Harmons of the world are soon to be dinosaurs, and I think one of the skills that's going to be lost, one of the skills that's already become a lost skill is the teaching eye, and the intrinsic values of feel and on-course management, and I think they're looking at numbers. And listen, I don't fault any. There's some wonderful technology out there, Ted. There's some great stuff out there if it's used properly. But I think most of the young teachers I see today, like you said, never pick their head up. They just don't pick their head up. And there's got to be a balance between the numbers on the screen and the art form we call golf. And it is an art form. Is it dangerous? I think it's extremely dangerous. I think you're right on, Ted. I think it's extremely, extremely dangerous. And we're at what I call a critical juncture in the way this game is taught and learned. And if you want to develop a robot, that's fine. But, as you know, the golf course changes daily, conditions change daily. There's this thing called pressure that computers don't measure, and how people adapt to pressure and react to pressure. And that's experience, that's competitive experience, and you don't learn that from a computer. You don't learn that from TrackMan. So I think that as teachers and as people who diagnose a number, there's a lot of talented young people out there. But as far as coaching people how to play the game and the nuances of the game, that art form is being lost. And that's going to really, I think that's going to really lead to some detrimental things down, 20 years down the road in the way the game is played and the way the game changes.
Well, society has already experienced that change in other areas. I mean, golf is just following suit with everybody else.
Absolutely.
The danger, I guess, the danger I guess that I see, Tom, is there's a lack of interaction between people in general, and you're seeing it now. And as I said, and I don't want to keep sort of belaboring a point, but you're finding more and more people, because there is so much information available. It's actually doing a disservice to the industry. Because as an example, I can go on to Google and I can, Google 1,001 different things about golf and get all that information. Now, some of it may be good information. A lot of it may not be good information. And the danger of that is it's kind of stealing away from the good information, because there's so many, wannabe instructors, or there's people out there that just want to give their 2 cents. They've got a blog on golf, so they're going to, write this and that down there. And the problem is, no, it's true. And the problem is that a lot of times it's misinformation or somebody's opinion. And the average person out there, especially the younger generation, takes it, as gospel. And this is why, if you look, Tom, and you know this to be true, if you look at the handicaps over the last 2 decades, they've barely changed despite all of the technical advances. Why is that? And that's because the information that's coming out, there's a lot of phenomenal information. I'm not trying to say I'm David Ledbetter or I'm Butch Harmon or anybody that, but the problem is that they're not really, nobody talks about the fundamentals anymore. I heard barely, tonight was probably the first time I've heard in a long time really anybody having that discussion. Everybody's talking about this plane, that plane, this, these numbers over here, those numbers over there. And the truth of the matter is, I don't care what machine you strap somebody up to. If the person has a bad grip or they've got their stance open 45 degrees, there are certain, or the club face is closed or open or whatever the scenario you want to paint, the ball is going to react a certain way. It doesn't matter what machine you have. So if somebody's not making the necessary adjustments to make sure they've got a good grip and they're standing correctly and so on and so forth down the line, they're not going to make the shots that they're going to need. And, you can talk spin rates until the cows come home. But the truth of the matter is, it comes down to the basic fundamentals. If the grip is sound, if the stance is sound, the posture, so on and so forth, more often than not, if those things are in tune, you're going to make a pretty good golf swing. And if the club face is square, then it's going to go straight. If it's open, it's going to fade or slice, what have you. And that's essentially what I'm trying to say.
Ted, I think, again, we continue to agree. Does TrackMan teach you about your grip? Does TrackMan teach you ball position? Does TrackMan teach you posture? Does TrackMan teach you aim and alignment? Does TrackMan teach you how to breathe when you can't breathe on the 17th hole with a one-shot lead? Okay? Mm-hmm. Does TrackMan teach you how to travel, make hotel reservations, get on an airline, make a cut, settle an argument with a caddy, interact with fellow players? None of those things. And those all start playing tournament golf. So I think when these kids sit behind a computer and think they're going to teach a tour player how to be well-rounded and how to be, progressive, I think they're absolutely daydreaming. It's just a daydream. So we agree. I mean, I think again, is the technology good? It's very good. Does it have a place? I think it does have a place. It doesn't have. It doesn't occupy the whole golf world. It has a place in the golf world.
Right.
I think the same thing goes on in our business today. With there, not all of them, but I think there are club fitters. I think there are sports psychologists. I think there are teachers. I think there are coaches that think that they can do everything on their own. I think that we have wonderful access to physical information today with things like TPI. I think that the Bob Rotellers of the world have a place in golf. I think that the Ted and Toms have a place in golf. I think TrackMan has a place in golf. But I think nothing is all-encompassing, and nothing is the answer. It is part of the answer, And the one part that we don't give enough credit to or enough emphasis on is the individual, going back to what I said before, the individual being willing to leave a golf lesson and go out on his or her journey and go through trial and error and learn certain things that they have to learn to some degree on their own through experience.
Right. And I I don't want for us to sound like a couple old dinosaurs and that we're skittish about technology or anything like that. I mean, I think the technology, I was a couple of years ago, I'm going to go this year, this January coming up, back down to the PGA show in Orlando and see I didn't go last year, but the year before I was there. And there was some, my eyes were rolling back in my head like a slot machine from some of the things that I saw, and it was very interesting. And it's exciting in a lot of ways. I guess my real question is this, Tom, is, technology is certainly here to stay. It's going to keep evolving. It's going to keep changing. But how do we break through the barrier of this social media communication? I have people, as you do, that are friends, and I say that they're friends loosely because they're just connections through social media. Never met them, have no idea really where they are. It's great. I'm glad they're following me. I'm glad that they're tuning into the program. But there has to be some physical contact as well. We have to be able to communicate. And my question to you is this: how do we break through this technological barrier and get people to engage again and get out there and enjoy and just have fun with this game. Forget all the numbers, forget all the stuff. Get out and have fun, because I think if people have fun again, they're going to want to keep taking up this game. Whereas you and I, right? You and I both know a lot of people have gotten out of the game because they're frustrated.
Yeah, I think that, you know, one of the things I ask people when they first come to my lesson, Teddy, is why are you here? And sometimes they look at me like I have three heads with that question. No, listen, are you here because you want to enjoy the walk more? Are you here because you want to shoot a lower score? Are you here because you want to compete? Are you here because your husband or wife told you should be here? Why are you here? And what do you want to get out of this? You know, where do you want to go? And I tailor my instruction to what they want. And now, I had a guy recently, you know, Teddy, and we've all been through this one. He shows up on my lesson tee, and he says to me, my goal is to play the senior tour. I said, well, how old are you? He says, I'm 47. I said, okay. I said, I don't know anything about you. Let me ask you a couple of questions. I said, did you win your junior club championship? He goes, no. I said, did you win your high school state championship? He says, no. How many junior tournaments did you win? None. Yeah. Did you play in college? I didn't. Have you ever won your club championship? No. Have you ever qualified for a state amateur? No. I said, and you want to play the senior tour?
Right.
He goes, well, yeah. I said, well, I think I'm the wrong guy because I'm not interested in failing with you. You know, I said, so these people come to you sometimes, and we got to understand from the other side of the fence as teachers that there really are some people out there that are absolutely delusional. You know, they're on fantasy island. So I think one part of our job, and that's an extreme case obviously, but part of our job is to bring people back to reality, you know, and what's wrong with the average guy, like you said, going out to his club, putting his bag on his shoulder and walking 9 holes and just having some fun. And that's all golf is to him. There's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I think everybody now in society, because the way we're being driven in our lives in this world, you know, you have to excel, you have to do this, you have to qualify for that, you have to win this, you have to win that. My son has to play like Tiger Woods, my daughter has to play like Lydia Ko. I mean, what happens just going out, putting the bag on your back and playing 9 holes and just absolutely loving where you are at that moment in time? And I think that's important.
Yeah, one of the problems that I'm seeing now is our generation is, you know, thinking along the lines of what you and I have talked about here tonight, but the generation coming up after and even the one after that doesn't look at things the same way, which in some ways is good, which is some ways good and some ways is bad. The bad of it is that they don't understand that. And this is what I worry about the golf industry. You know, they're trying everybody and their brothers out doing different things and trying to build the game and try to, you know, get into these different junior programs. And there's some very hard-working people out there doing their best. And the LPGA and the PGA are doing, I think, the best that they can. But the generation coming up right now, to be quite honest, thinks along the lines of the gentleman you were just talking about. They've never played golf. But they would love to be the next Tiger Woods or Lydia Ko. And then there's others that really couldn't give a rat's you-know-what about golf.
Right.
They just have no interest in it, no desire. They don't even play a lot of sports anymore. They've got their video game or they've got whatever. There's a real danger, I think, of the golf industry changing substantially to the point where a lot of people within the industry, and some have already done it, are going to get out because they're not making money. Right. They're not able to. I mean, golf courses are closing. Somebody just mentioned here the other week on the program, 2 or 3 up in the Carolinas. I think Clint, when it was on last week, mentioned 2 or 3 more that are closing up. The reason is people are not going out. And there's only 2 areas that really we can grow the game. You're not going to grow the game anymore in the 60-plus age group because they're already playing.
Right.
And you know, it's not like you're going to grow another 60-year-old. So we have to find a way of engaging these youngsters. And I truly believe the only way to do it, in my opinion, is to get it into the school system, like football and like baseball and like the other traditional sports. And I mean, not just at the college level or even at the middle school level. I mean, get these little kids out there, and I mean right across on a national basis. I think the PGA, the LPGA, and the powers that be really need to get some corporate dollars and get it in, and if they have to be like everybody else, and I hate to use this terminology, lobby the government and get them in there, because I think there's going to be a real danger if they don't.
You know, I don't. You know, boy, you've obviously done a hell of a lot of thinking on this, and in all honesty, you're much more thinking on that than I have. I would love just to see a segment of the population that plays recreationally, like you said earlier.
Sure.
Just get back to enjoying golf, and not to say that they shouldn't participate in the club championship, not to say they shouldn't play in the 3-day member guest or something like that, but you know, to enjoying. You know, I remember as a kid going to the back of the range at the club, like the public golf course I grew up at, with a shag bag of balls, and some of my greatest memories, you know, with all the successes I had as a junior player and a college player, some of my greatest memories are at the back of that range. There was this little patch of grass that I'd kind of hide between a couple of trees and just hit balls back there, and for hours just hit, and that's some of my greatest memories of golf. As a matter of fact, this summer I took a ride back to the public golf course I grew up at. I hadn't been there in years. I mean, a lot of years. And I walked into the golf shop. People I knew were long gone from that place, and I paid my green fee at the counter like anybody else. I didn't try to show a PGA card. I didn't try to ask, you know, for a discount. I just paid a green fee and got on a golf cart. And I went out and played the golf course I grew up on, and it was a Tuesday afternoon. I had a day off, and from Friar's Head, and I played 18 holes out there by myself. There was nobody out there. It was a quiet afternoon, and I had an absolute blast, just a blast. Just playing, I mean, because so many memories ran through my head about this, you know, place, because I'd grown up there as a kid, and you know, every hole something else popped into my head about something that had happened as a kid, and boy, what's wrong with that? What a great afternoon that was, you know. It was just absolutely, it was like, you know, it was like one of the greatest days of my summer, and I don't know how many people still just go out and enjoy golf, you know, just enjoy the walk, you know. So I think we need to get back to that a little bit.
I agree, and that's really, you know, what I'm getting at. Let me just, it's hard to believe this is another hour that's really just sort of blown by here. I want to give you another opportunity, Tom, just to let the folks know how they can get a hold of you and some of the things that you're going to be working on this winter, that they, if they're planning on venturing down your neck of the woods, how they can get a hold of you and some of the things that you're going to be offering.
Well, thanks, Teddy. I mean, the two easiest ways to get a hold of me are through my email address, which is tpatri, first initial T, Patri, at Mindspring, M-I-N-D, spring, spring.com. Happy to have them email me personally. My cell phone, they can reach me directly by call or by text, is area code 239-404-7790, and then they can always find me via my website, which is just tompatri.com. We started teaching 2 days ago, and I'm here in Naples through the end of May. And then, like I said, I'm available for, you know, summer golf schools at their own clubs with their own host professional. I'll be definitely in the New York area for a week a month, and then I will be teaching in Naples during the summer 1 week a month also. So if they haven't been with me before, I'd love to get them down for the first time. Naples is not exactly hard duty during the winter season. It's a little bit like paradise, and
it is.
And you know, it's just we have a wonderful situation at the quarry. Like I said, Gail Graham has joined TP Golf Schools now for the winter, and the quarry's in wonderful condition right now. And come enjoy the sunshine. Let's hit a few balls together.
It sounds good. Tom, as always, I want to thank you for coming on, and you know, you're welcome to come back anytime, and maybe next year, I know you're a busy guy, but maybe next year I'll get you in on maybe a few of the panel discussions as well. But talk to Gail and tell her that once she's, as I said, gotten her feet wet a little bit in the new year, I'll have the two of you come on, and we can talk a little bit more about some of the great things that you're doing down in Naples.
Well, Ted, let's do a couple of things. First of all, we you know, it's funny for listeners out there. We've spoken on your show a couple of times now. We've never actually met face to face.
No.
We have to make that happen. We have to make that happen. So I'm going to be at the PGA show too. So why don't you when we get off the radio tonight, why don't you shoot me an email, and I'd love to set up a time to meet you at the show and shake your hand and thank you in person for having me. I appreciate, obviously, to the viewers out there, Ted does a wonderful job of not only sending all you guys so much great information, having so many great guests on, but what a great opportunity for us to obviously expose our abilities and obviously drive our business through him. He does a great service to you, the listener, as learners, and he does a great service to us, the professionals, for exposure. So I want to thank you, Teddy, very much, and I'll come on anytime you want to have me back.
Well, that sounds good, and thank you. Thank you very much for the kind words, and that's really what the show is all about. It's really a way, really to be truthful, and I've said this many times, especially in the beginning, I see all the different, conversations going on in social media, and it's very interesting, but there's a lot of things that you can't talk about in 140 characters on Twitter, and there's a lot of things even in a group on Facebook or LinkedIn. It's very difficult to really understand and hear the passion sometimes of the people that you're talking to. So this gives me an opportunity to learn and expand my craft as well, and hopefully share some ideas with my fellow professionals. So I enjoy doing this as much as the people do coming on the program. So Tom, it's always a pleasure having you on as well, that we can exchange some information, and I will definitely do that. I'm not 100% sure, so what I'm going to do, Tom, is I haven't decided which days I'm going to be there at the show this year, in January. But I will definitely make a point, and I'm probably going to announce what days I'm going to be there here shortly. For other guests that have been on that maybe want to meet, we'll exchange the information and do that. But I definitely would love to meet with you. And a lot of the guests that have been on here, I have not met a good many of them in person, but I feel like I've known them for years. They've been on so many times. So, but Tom, thank you very much for all that you do and continued success. And please say hello to my fellow Canadian Gail. And tell her I'd love to have her come on the show as well. Have a great weekend, Tom. Sorry.
Thanks to you, Ted, and thanks to all the listeners for listening in. And I look forward to talking to you real soon.
All right. Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye now.
All right. Bye-bye. All right, that was my very special guest, PGA Golf Coach and Teaching Professional, Mr. Tom Patri. A great guy, great veteran of the game, a seasoned coach and seasoned teaching professional. Now going to be doing a lot of his work out of Naples, and kudos for doing that. I know he's been going back and forth here for a few years, but I'm going to be traveling a little bit with his wife, as he said, here and there, and spending some good quality time, which I think you have to do from time to time and keep things fresh and just enjoy that relationship as well. But just a great guy, and as he had alluded to, we certainly have never met face-to-face, but I'm going to make a point of that when I go to the show this year. I want to take this opportunity to thank, obviously, Jamie as well for coming on the Coach's Corner panel. And Michael, I know that you're probably listening in. Hope everything's working out okay, and I will definitely make a point of having you back on in one of the upcoming panel discussions here shortly. But my thoughts and prayers are with you at this time, and referring to, of course, PGA Teaching Professional Michael Wheeler. Thanks to all my fans from all over the world for faithfully tuning in and listening to Golf Talk Live each week. I certainly do, as I said to Tom, have a great amount of pleasure and enjoyment of having a number of highly talented coaches and teaching professionals, authors, and entrepreneurs stop by the program, and it's really through their participation and guest appearances that help make Golf Talk Live a first-class show. Also, a special thank you to some of the sponsors and supporters of the program, Mr. Jonathan Laird from South Coast Golf Guide. Go to southcoastgolfguide.com, and you can get your hot little hands on a copy of the guide. It has some great courses, some great tracks to play from Texas all the way over here to Florida. Meredith Kirk from Meredith Kirk Golf, of course, she was the 2014 Mrs. South Carolina. She's been on the program a few times. Thank you for all of your support as well, Meredith. Nikki and Tiffany Litherland, thank you for all of your support and getting the word out there for the program over the years. You've done a great job. Thank you very much for your support, Nikki and Tiffany. Mr. Bernie Pinder from Ontic Golf, great custom putters that he puts together. Go to onticgolf.com. Thank you, Bernie, and look forward to having you on the show again in the new year. Sean Kelly, owner of linkedgolfers.com. Thank you, Sean, for all of your continued support. Go to linkedgolfers.com and get some great information that he has on his business site there. And, of course, Mr. Peter Doyle from Doyle Golf Solutions over in Ireland. Thank you, Peter, for all of your continued support. And thank you, each and every one of you, for tuning in every Thursday at 6 p.m. Central right here on Golf Talk Live. God bless everybody and have a great weekend.